Next up in my Steam library is Too Dark, and I'm reviewing the games in my Steam library from the top down, and Too Dark is next. I forgot to say hi to you guys. Thank you for tuning in. As always, I appreciate that. So let's continue with Too Dark. It's a game developed by the man who brought us Alone in the Dark, if you can remember that. A really fun horror game, one of the first to try and immerse you in that sort of a horror world. Too Dark is a top-down horror game. You play Smith, who after his two kids are abducted, starts to unravel this sinister plot about kids being captured and by a bunch of serial killers. And the 2D pixel art combined with the 3D voxel characters is so charming to look at. It's horrific at the same time. That has that sort of a dual thing. It's charming, it looks funny, but it's not, because there's a lot of horror here, and also the soundtrack really underlines that horror. The soundtrack is amazing, some really great tunes there, although the sound effects are quite repetitive, unfortunately. Now, what about the gameplay? So, top down, you control Smith. You have to survive through a level, but you also have to look out for the kids that are in the level, and you have to guide them out of the level unharmed. And each level is different from the other and themed after almost every trope from the Book of Horrors, where it be like this circus location, or a butcher shop, or a morgue, or something like that. And every level has a specific boss, whether it be a killer clown or a Frankenstein doctor or a cannibalistic butcher. And levels are well laid out, I have to say, full of pitfalls and surprises. But in essence, this game is a stealth game, which means that staying in the dark to avoid enemies is very important. And trying to get those kids out, of course. But the problem is that playing it that way as a stealth game is almost impossible. I mean, yes, you can stay in the dark and you can try to evade enemies or patrolling guards or whatnot, but as soon as they detect you, which is quite soon, you'll be forced to run away or use violence. So the stealth element doesn't really work that well. I guess it has to do with the enemies having such a radius around them so they can easily spot you even if it's in the dark. If you really want to play this stealth-like, be prepared for a lot of trial and error and frustration. And there isn't much of a payoff if you do that, as each level sort of ends with a star rating, like from 1 to 5. But who cares, really? So I went with another option, and it's just to kill everyone in the level. Only after I massacred every bad guy in the level, I stumbled upon certain stealth-related items, like a bottle of poison that I could have used on a cake to poison the enemies, or to disguise myself with a certain item that would help me pass certain guards. And I was like, oh, okay, I could have used that when I, had these items sooner in the game. But even so, getting your hands on a melee weapon, like a knife or a pickaxe or whatnot, you can do some serious backstabbing in this game. And that is probably the best strategy. It's how I played the game. I just tried to stay in the dark, waited for the enemies to come around, and I tried to get behind them and then just stab them. And it's a lot easier also to use this strategy to kill everyone in the level, to be able to move the kids out of the level, because everybody's dead. So this is kind of ironic. For a game about pursuing serial killers, I pretty much turned into one myself. So there's a fundamental flaw in the game design. For a stealth game to work, you have to be able to use stealth as a viable option, but it's really not. It's pretty much the best option. It's just to kill everyone. Also, the problem with this game is that the input is strangely mapped on the controller. Browsing the inventory, you need the directional pad to scroll through the items, and the inventory takes 1/3 of the screen away from you. Also, you have to equip items individually by pressing the I key on the controller, and it didn't feel very intuitive. It's very cumbersome to have to switch these items. Like for instance, you come to a closed door, but you already have the key. You have to equip the key in order to open the door and that sort of thing. And then you don't have a weapon ready, so you might stumble upon an enemy that will immediately hack at you. So there is a lot of frustration there. It would have been really nice if you could sort of switch between items very easily, but you can't. Also, the movement of the character is kind of clunky. Trying to position yourself so that you can do that backstab feels kind of imprecise. You have to really get behind the character, so to speak, and then click at the right moment. It's just not very precise. So despite itself, the game can be fun. It can be fun, but barely. The atmosphere, the charm, the use of all the horror tropes, the little details about the various killers. There is a lot of backstory here. That stuff goes a long way, but not long enough to give this game a serious recommendation, unfortunately. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next video.